Hello, everyone. We are here with another episode, and today I have with me Monica Tanner. She is a sex therapy certified relationship coach, and she is the host of the Secrets of Happily Ever After podcast. She transforms marriages with simple communication, connection, conflict resolution, and commitment strategies. Her mission is to lower the divorce rate and improve marital satisfaction through her engaging podcast, new Amazon best-selling book, Bad Marriage Advice, vibrant social media community, and couples coaching practice. Monica's expert guidance has impacted thousands of couples by helping them to ditch the resentment and the roommate syndrome and get back to living their happily ever after love story. So today I bring her to you to talk all things about rebuilding relationships after the hard parts that we've been through in past previous funky relationships. So Monica, welcome. Thank you for being
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So the first question that I have for you is what got you to this place of practicing and doing what you're doing?
Yeah, short version of the story is I had this magical childhood. My parents divorced when I was 12, and I was like, wait a second, that's not right. And so I got really observant about marriages around me, and I wanted to make sure that I knew the right way to do it. And I was pretty discouraged because I felt like most of the people who were married around me weren't that happy. And so I really started studying marriage from like academically, but also just observing couples around me, like what works, what doesn't work. My mission is really to lower the divorce rate, but raise marital satisfaction because I don't think that a marriage of mutual toleration is something we should strive for either. I feel like everybody should have their happily ever after love story. And now, after being married to my best friend for 24 years and raising 4 children, I know that it's possible. I know that it's possible to create it. It's not going to happen by accident. It's something you have to put intention and effort behind, and a lot of faith, as I think we're going to talk about today. So, that's kind of how that started. I was raised by 4 therapists, so I knew I wanted to do this work, but not in the same way that my parents
Yeah,
did. So that's why you've got the coach in my title. I have trained in a lot of different therapies, but I am not a licensed therapist. I'm a coach.
I like that. So how did you get into the sex therapy side of things and the part that you do in your business?
Yeah. Well, I started seeing couples, and a lot of people would come to me with, we need better communication skills, or we're just, kind of missing each other. But always a couple sessions in, it would come to sex. And I knew that if I really, really wanted to help couples, I better get some more training in sex specifically. Because, obviously, I know how to do it. We have 4 kids, but like the different real challenges that couples face around sex, it's hard to, have a great marriage and teach about marriage and not be really kind of versed in the sexual challenges. So that's what drove me to get more training in the area of sex.
I like that. And I think about it like this. So even speaking to some of our audience who has had, past either abusive or toxic relationships, sex used to be weaponized, right? It
Mm.
was something like in that space. And I hear this in a lot of my clients and the work that I do too, where they come in and they're like, if I don't, if we're just holding hands, it's expected later. So,
Right.
it comes into that space of it becomes a weapon and not
Mhm.
something that brings connection. Did you start seeing that come through as well?
There's all types of reasons why people really struggle with creating a sexual relationship that they both really love. A lot of it has to do with, how they grew up, the beliefs they have around sex, traumas like you're describing. Yeah, there's so many reasons why people really struggle to create, or what I like to say, co-create a really healthy, thriving sexual relationship. So yeah, a lot of times we have to work through a lot of those pieces to get down to what do I really want in my sexual relationship and how do I co-create that with my partner?
I like that. What are some of the common things that you see in your practice and what you do coaching that can keep couples apart whenever it comes to sex?
Yeah. I mean, I think probably the biggest challenge is learning how to communicate your wants and needs in a way that your partner understands. Because when we get to the topic of sex, it's pretty weighted. It's pretty heavy. Like there's a lot behind it. There's a lot of false ideas behind it of like, men need it and women are just there to kind of service men's needs, like all of these subtle things that maybe nobody said directly to us but that we kind of inherited growing up. We have to examine all of that, and couples really, I have a lot of tools that I give to couples to kind of start working through the different ideas and beliefs and difficult messaging that they've received around sex. And so that's kind of the beginning of it, is really learning how to talk about it, right? Like learning how to have uncomfortable conversations about topics that are difficult. So whether you really had some trauma around it, or just it's something that wasn't talked about, and so you're kind of left to your own devices, and you've just seen a lot of romantic comedy movies that show sex in a light that, I think a lot of people get into relationships and they're like, wait a second, this isn't what I've seen on TV or what the porn industry is pushing, or, there's really a lot of messaging around sex that isn't reality. And so people get really disappointed really quickly when they're like, this is not what I thought this was going to be like. And so that's a good place to start with couples.
I like that. And I also like what you said about, being able to communicate your needs. Because I think a lot of time when we feel safe to communicate our needs, it brings that desire and connection even closer to your partner because you feel safe. And I think for a lot of women, safety and security is a huge piece, and connection. It's a huge piece of what brings you to the table and brings you to the bedroom. Like,
yes,
that connection piece.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, but that's a lot easier said than done.
It
Creating
is.
safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And especially if you come from a background where there is trauma or there was some kind of sexual assault.
Mhm.
So for some of those ladies that are listening, what are some pieces of advice that you could give to create that safe space right now, just in their own body?
Yeah, I mean, I think a great first step for anyone who's been through anything that feels traumatic around sexuality, whether it's a former partner or something that happened within childhood, is to do a lot of journaling. I have my clients really sit down and process through, but with pen and paper, which is hard for people because I know, you don't want those things found by your kids or your spouse or, a partner or just anyone. And so even if you process it through on paper and then destroy it, it's still a lot more helpful than just keeping it in your brain and like trying to go through it in your mind. So to me, I think paper and pen are so therapeutic, but really it's kind of going through what was my experience? What do I want to experience? It's mourning what I thought sexuality might be, or how how I thought I would have experienced it and didn't. And it's a lot about what am I thinking around all of this, because there's so much you can change about your life experience when you recognize that your thoughts are not facts. And I think that's what keeps a lot of people stuck in this and every area of their life is our brain tells us what, our brain is really good at solving problems we give it to solve, kind of finding problems, creating solutions for it. And so if we've had a negative experience around sex, any type of negative experience around sex, our brain's going to give us thoughts. And when we act on those thoughts as if they were facts, our life is like a certain way, right? So if our thought is sex is dangerous, and we maneuver around sex as if that's fact, sex is dangerous, we're going to relate to sex and sexuality and sex with a partner in a certain way. But once we start to recognize that sex is dangerous is a thought, and it's an optional thought, and we can change that thought and create a more empowering thought, then we relate to sex in a different way that's going to be more healthy for us. And so really starting to do that work. What are the facts and what are my thoughts around those facts? What are the circumstances that I had in my past? And what are my thoughts around those circumstances? And how can I challenge some of those thoughts because they're not facts, they're just thoughts? And then how can I use new thoughts to create a different reality or outcome for myself? That's really important work.
Yeah. And I'm with you on that, creating the relationship that what you said earlier about being able to change it. If this is the way that I lived, how do I want to live instead? What would
Mm-hmm.
this look like for me? It even goes into, creating your own dream partner. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same concept. If this is the life that you've lived, these are the partners that you've had, these are your red flags. What do green flags look like? What are some things that you need to notice in another relationship? So, and I love that you say that as far as just the rebuild aspect of it, because you're absolutely right. It is grieving what was. It's grieving the version of the relationship you had, the version of the person that maybe you married, or how y'all started to where you are right now. I love that you're saying all of those pieces and bringing them in there because I think they do matter in the next relationship and they matter in the next version of yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So, do you work with mostly couples or do you work with individuals?
Right now, I would say my practice is about 75% couples, 25% individuals. A lot of the individuals I work with are moving from anxious to secure attachment
Okay.
and getting ready for the next relationship they're going to be in.
Okay, I like that. What are some of the things that you work with your clients with on creating that secure attachment?
Hmm. So, a lot of what I just described, actually, it's basically taking what are the triggers that make me anxious or, trigger the thoughts that I'm not safe or that I, need to be worried about this situation. That's kind of what an anxious attachment is. It's basically, it's an abandonment wound that's showing itself in our everyday life. And so it's a lot about working with those triggers. What makes me feel unsafe? What makes me feel insecure or anxious? And then giving you tools and more empowering thoughts and how to challenge those thoughts in order to create a new outcome. And, at the end of the day, it's really about understanding that I'm okay. I am in control of my own life, regardless of what other people do, regardless of what other circumstances are around me that I can't control, anyways. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to know what to do. I can take care of myself. So, those thoughts are the more empowering, kind of secure thoughts. And then it's amazing because it doesn't really matter what the other people do around you, but it just so happens that the other people around you kind of stop doing the things that you're so frightened about.
Yeah. Well, and I think also you're seeing that consistency too, where you saw consistency in negatives, maybe, or you're just seeing the consistency in the new way. Because I know even in some of my clients who come through and they go through new relationships, they're like, this is this thing they're doing. It's nice. Okay, how does that make you feel? Like,
Yeah,
is
it's
it
kind
gonna
of
flip?
rewiring your brain to see kind of a different aspect of life. Instead of waiting for the other shoe to drop, it's kind of noticing in the present what is going well. And if it's not going well, it's having the tools and the confidence to be able to change the situation you're in.
Yeah. I'm curious, even with that, with those green flags, what are some communication things that y'all work on when you're with your couples? What are, like, I know one of my therapists, when I brought one of my therapists on too, one of the conversations that we had was, let them say something and then how did you take that? What did you hear this person say?
Mhm.
So I'm curious, what are some communication workshops or things that y'all do in session that helps to strengthen the communication together to center the relationship?
Yeah. Well, I think the ultimate goal is really to create a space where more honesty can be handled inside of the relationship. I think when people come and say they have communication problems, most of the time it's we don't know how to deal honestly with the things that are hard in our relationship. And so a lot of what I work on with couples is how do we bring more honesty and learn how to deal with that honesty in an honest way. So a lot of honesty, but also it's teaching your partner how to treat you through making requests and setting healthy boundaries. So that's a lot of the work I do with couples is really teaching skills to be able to make requests of your partner instead of resent them, and set healthy boundaries so that you feel more in control of the relationship, but you're not controlling the other person. You're controlling yourself and how you respond in the relationship. And that's what a healthy boundary allows for. So it's a lot of self-esteem work, boundary work, teaching each other skillfully how to treat you with love, and laying more honesty out there. Because people ask, how do you deal with like the really hard issues like adultery and infidelity or addiction, or there's certain things that preclude you from working with couples, right? So if there's an ongoing active addiction, we've got to deal with that before we can really do couples work. But once those things have been addressed, it's really like, how can we get really honest and really clear about the impact we're having on each other? And that's really the work of couples work.
I like that. I like that even from the perspective, especially with the addiction side of things, because even some of my clients have struggled with that with previous partners.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you deal with that? How do you stop circling the same thoughts and same issues?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you also work through those things. I have another question in regards to conflict and conflict resolution. So when you're working with your couples, I'm sure a lot of times different conflicts come up or certain things. And I know honesty, we just addressed that. Honesty is the first thing. When it comes to certain conflicts, what types of communication, even for the audience, what's something that they can take with them today to start practicing in creating a safe environment to bring up conflicts or to bring up certain situations?
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, we've got to reframe the idea of conflict as bad.
True.
And we can start seeing conflict as a way to connect. Because honestly, in any relationship, whether you're talking about, a working relationship or a friendship or any family relationship, including a romantic relationship, you've got two different people with two different personalities and experiences and opinions and preferences. So you're always, if you have two people who are being honest with each other, you're always going to have conflict. It's what does that conflict mean for your relationship? Does it mean driving a wedge in it, or does it mean more connection? So here's a principle that's in relational life therapy, which is what I use to work with couples, is that all relationships are an endless loop of harmony, disharmony, and repair. So disharmony or conflict is a necessary step in order to be able to get to the repair phase. And in the repair phase is where trust and intimacy and resilience and strength is born. Because if you think about it, if you're always in harmony with each other, if you always agree about everything and you're never having any conflicts, you're not going to have a very strong relationship. It's going to be pretty shaky, right? Because it's based on the idea that you're always going to agree and never going to have any conflict. So you want there to be conflict or disharmony. You also want to have the skills of repair. So when you ask, like, what's a skill? The skill of repair is one of the most important skills. And I'll tell you, the most important thing about repair is that it's a one-way street. And this is where most couples get this wrong. So if your partner comes to you with a like something that's not going well, or if they are basically if they're in disrepair with you, you hurt my feelings, you did this, if they have some sort of feedback for you, whatever it is, if they approach you then you're basically at the customer service window. Meaning, like, this is what this looks like in a lot of couples. Like, let's say I come to you and I'm like, my microwave's broken. What most couples do is the other person says, well, my oven's broken. And now you've got two people with broken appliances just going at it. Versus I come to you and I say, my microwave's broken. And you say, all right, let's fix the microwave together. So I would say the biggest takeaway from all of this, if you're like gobbledygook, you barely heard anything, the best thing you can do in a conflict is get curious. Get curious about your partner, get curious about yourself. So whatever the conflict is, whatever the disagreement is, get curious about yourself and get curious about your partner's experience, understanding that you're having two different realities, right? Like, my microwave's broken, that hurt my feelings. You might have no idea what the problem is. The only way to figure it out is to get really curious.
I like that a lot. And I love that you say it's a one-way street, because it's absolutely true. When you bring up a problem, one person has to decide we have to fix it.
Exactly. That's not to say that you can't, present your broken oven tomorrow. But right now, if your partner's microwave is broken, you put your heads together and you figure out how to fix the microwave.
I like that. So when it comes to in that repair, obviously there's a certain way to communicate. There's a certain way to bring in that connection. What are some tools that you use with your clients in rebuilding or promoting that repair? I know obviously communication is going to be one of those, but what are some other tools that you work with your clients with in your coaching business?
Yeah. Well, I would say for repair specifically, I would always default to curiosity. So the phrase I like to use that comes from relational life therapy as well is learning how to have compassionate curiosity for your partner's subjective reality. I know that's a big phrase. So what I mean by that is understanding that there's no place for objective reality in relationships, meaning there's your reality and my reality. And if we're trying to make our realities match up, we're just going to get into a big objectivity battle where nobody wins. Because the truth is that you have a reality and I have a reality. So an example of this would be when we finish this podcast, we've been in the same room, we're having the same conversation, the two of us, me and you. But I guarantee if someone asks you, how'd it go? What did you talk about? Your answer is going to be different than my answer because you're a different person. Your reality is different. Even though we were right here,
right,
same exact room, having the same exact conversation, we experienced it through two different lenses. So if you'll just take as truth that whenever you're in a relationship with somebody else, there's their reality and there's your reality. And if you will default to compassionate curiosity, meaning you make your goal to understand their reality better, then you will gain more trust, resilience, intimacy, passion, all of the things we want, because it's not about agreement, right? The Gottmans have done research and shown that 69% of all conflict in relationships is unsolvable, meaning we're never going to come to an agreement about most of the things we have conflict about. But what we can do is come to a better understanding of who our partner is, how and why they think the things that they do, and we can start to respect and value their differences.
So do you mean whenever you say get curious, are we asking questions?
Yes. Whenever I have couples that, they're like, okay, what do we do? How do we do this? I'm like, ask more questions than making statements. Your conversation should be more questions than comments, right? So when your partner says, man, I'm really upset about XYZ, ask them questions about that. Interesting. Tell me more about that. How did that affect you? What's the hardest part about that? how can you like put on your detective hat and figure out exactly what your partner is experiencing? Not because you're going to agree with them or you have to give up any part of how you saw the situation, but because you want to be more understanding of what they saw. So another like object lesson that I like to give about this is once I had this husband, and he was like, I just shut down when my wife comes to me and says the ball was orange because I clearly saw the ball was blue. And so she's saying that it's orange, which is so freaking ridiculous. I just shut down. Like I can't listen to anything else she says. And I'm like, wait a second. What if this ball was blue on one side and orange on the other side, and you could only see the blue side and she could only see the orange side? You're going to shut her down before you recognize the fact that this ball is actually two different colors? So instead of just proving that your partner is wrong, see if you can ask enough questions to see how you both might be right.
Yeah. Yes. I did. In fact, I do that with my kids a lot because even with my kids, when they're in a space, so even prime example this morning and yesterday, when my daughter was complaining, she always does this, she always does that. How does that make you feel? Does it make you feel like you're not included? Does it make you feel like you're not involved? Does when these events happen, which are none of them are related, this happened in school, you and your sister aren't even in the same classroom. When these events happen, none of these are related, but they have one common theme. Nobody sees me, nobody hears me. Everybody's misunderstanding me.
Yeah.
And so when we get to that space, when I recognize that pattern, of course, it's what I do in my work, is pattern recognition. And I get to that, I'm like, hey, is this where you are? Is this where you're feeling? Do you feel like when these things happen, they all equal this pattern, this wound? She's like, yes.
Right. She feels seen, right? And you don't have to agree that that's what is actually happening. It's just that she feels understood by you, whether she's seeing it clearly or not. You see her, you understand her. And in relationships, that's what we're looking for. We just want to be seen and understood, not even agreed with.
Right. And I even look at it with my partner, which is the healthiest relationship I have ever been in. And so even being in this space, when I go to ask questions like, okay, you're snapping, what are we snapping about? Does this bring up a wound? Does this bring up something from the past? What are we thinking about? Because how can I help you walk through this? I am not the same. This is not the same. This is completely different, whole different scenario. How can we work on this together? What does this connection look like? What does this repair look like? So I am that curious partner. I do put my detective hat on. And sometimes it gets into this, you don't have to dissect me and
Right. Because sometimes they don't need a solution to the problem. They just need to know that you're on their team and that you are willing and available to understand what they're going through. And that's all that we actually really want most of the time.
I agree. And it's also in that space, see me, hear me, and just let me know that my feelings are valid. How I feel is valid and it's not undermined. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your program, how you work with your clients, and we'll kind of ask some more questions before we.
Yeah. Well, mostly I work one-on-one with couples or individuals. It's just, one-on-one coaching. I also offer intensives, which is, if there's something, a little trickier going on. A lot of couples who are kind of on the brink of divorce will do an intensive, which is a couple of days of full-on all-day coaching. So that's basically the two ways I work with clients. I also do a lot of newlywed coaching. So if you have your favorite couple is getting married, you could consider giving them 3 sessions with me, and we just kind of set a foundation for creating a really, really healthy, not only emotional and sexual relationship, but how do we set that up for success? So that's, as far as, I don't have like a program, but it's just one-on-one coaching.
And in your sessions, you're also focusing on what are ways that we can decrease that divorce rate and increase more of that connection space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I help couples uncover the parts of them that are creating a lot of disconnection for them, whether it's, really, really acute, like they're just about to divorce, or, it's just they're feeling alone or isolated in their relationship, completely disconnected, resentful, all of those things. So, yes, I help them address the parts of them that really won't use the skills that you get in traditional therapy anyways.
How many of your clients at the end of it come back to you? Like, so let's do some testimonials of people coming back to you and telling you just all the raves and what's changed in their lives and their relationship to bring them closer together.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've been successful with every couple I've ever worked
Well,
with.
we're not talking about all
But
those. We're talking about the ones who have
but
been
I do
successful.
have a lot of couples that check in with me periodically, like every 6 months, and let me know what's working and where they're still getting stuck. And it's like one of the biggest honors of my life to be able to see the transformation in a couple who, one of them was ready to leave, and then all of a sudden they're really, I call it in relational recovery, meaning they're not getting everything perfect all the time, which none of us do, right? But they're really working hard to create that safe, emotionally connected, sexually thriving relationship that, we all really, really want. So, yeah, I mean, I love getting check-ins from clients who, have made so much progress and are gung ho, like, okay, it's not perfect, of course, but it's really working and we're really in a better space. So yeah, I have lots of clients that check in with me like that.
Awesome. Well, last bit, tell everybody where they can find you, and we will close us out.
Yeah, thank you so much. You can learn about all my free resources, including my podcast and social media appearances and all of those things at my website, monicatanner.com. You can also links to my book as well as how to work with me there. So just my name, monicatanner.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. And we will catch you guys on the flip side.